We like to believe we say what we mean, but do we? Every day, we tell people things like, just ignore them or be yourself, assuming they'll understand what we mean. But what if those words were taken literally and put into action? In this episode, we're talking about something we do every day without even realizing it, assuming our words are as clear as our intentions. Hi, I'm Dr. Theresa Haskins, and welcome to Think Differently, the podcast that challenges the status quo and explores the power of neurodiversity to create a more inclusive and accessible world. Together, we will talk about everything from the value of different perspectives to the limitless potential of human beings. We'll explore how embracing differences can lead to endless possibilities and how you can maximize strengths to make a positive impact on the world. So sit back, relax, and join me as we get ready to think differently. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Think Differently. Today, I want to start our time together by telling you a story about a miscommunication that was nobody's fault and everybody's fault at the same time. Many years ago, I interviewed this manager who told me about one of his autistic employees. They were having a problem with an internal client. This person was rude and frequently said things that hurt the employee's feelings. So the manager listened to what was happening and really did take the issue seriously, but also knew he couldn't do much to change the internal client's behavior. So he offered what he thought was straightforward advice. He said to the employee, "I understand what you're going through, and I'm really sorry this is happening, but try not to let him bother you. Just ignore him." And the employee did, literally. The employee ignored the client. They stopped answering emails, stopped returning voicemails for weeks, until the internal client was so mad, he went straight to the manager, absolutely furious, demanding to know why this person had gone completely silent. The manager, and I want to give him some real credit here, understood immediately what had happened. He said at the time he almost laughed out loud at the absurdity of the situation because he caused it. But he didn't laugh out loud. He owned the exchange, though, and he said, "I'm so sorry. This is not their fault. I told them to ignore you because your exchanges were getting upsetting with them. And I meant for it to not let it get under their skin, and they obviously took my advice at face value. I'll get this fixed, but by the way, you could ease up on how you talk to them, and to me for that matter." So the manager in this moment did three things right. They took responsibility for the situation, he protected his employee, and he named the real problem, which wasn't the autistic employee at all. It was the direction and how people were treating each other, how they communicated. And that's something we can all do better at. But here's what I want you to sit with. How many times might that story end differently? What if the manager didn't own up to his own direction? How many times does the employee get written up for being unresponsive after they were told to let something go? How many times does the performance review say something about professionalism or communication skills or not being a team player, when what actually happened is that someone gave an ambiguous instruction and assumed everyone would interpret it the same way? It turns out sometimes we're being clear and sometimes we think we're being clear. And many times it turns out we're just not. So this is something I think about a lot because one of the things that gets said about many neurodivergent people is that they struggle with communication. And I want to push back on that thought. Many neurodivergent people, autistic people, people with ADHD, twice exceptional folks, tend toward directness and literalness. They say what they mean what they say. When they ask a question, it's because they want an answer. When they give you information, they're giving you information, not performing social pleasantries around it. That is not a communication deficit. That is a communication style, a very precise one. And so the problem is that it exists inside a world where a significant amount of communication is anything but precise, where we say one thing and often mean another, when we share assumed context that doesn't exist, where we speak in metaphor and idiom and implication and then act surprised when someone takes us at our word. So we say things like, just ignore him, let it go, don't make a big deal out of it, read the room, use your judgment. What do any of those actually mean? In those moments, what specific action are you implying they do? What does success look like if they follow that instruction? If you cannot answer those questions quickly, you have not given a clear direction. You've given the appearance of help, of a direction. You provided a vague idea, a suggestion, and called it communication and management. And here's where it gets more complicated. Neurotypical communication often runs on a system of implied meaning, social assumption, and unspoken context. Much of this is efficient. When two people share the same cultural and social frameworks, a lot can be conveyed in very few words. That's not a flaw. That's how language often works in communities. But when you assume that your system is a universal system, when you assume everyone in the room is operating from the same set of implied meanings, you create a gap. And the people who fall into that gap are often the ones who get blamed for falling. They're told they're being too literal. You're not picking up on cues. At some point, they'll be told they're hard to work with, or you just don't communicate well. When what's actually true is the neurodivergent person communicated precisely, and the system around them communicated ambiguously. And somehow it's the precise communicator that's the problem. I've seen this play out in performance conversations, in team dynamics, in hiring decisions. Someone is flagged as a poor communicator when what they are is a direct communicator in an environment that mistakes indirectness for sophistication. Imagine telling someone, "Can you keep an eye on this?" One person thinks, "Watch it." The second person hears, "Take ownership of the issue." And a third person thinks, "I need to watch this and report back on it every day." Similar actions, but three pretty different interpretations. And I want to be fair here. This isn't about neurotypical people being malicious. Most of the time, they generally don't realize how much they're assuming. They think they were clear because in their experience, the people around them in the past understood them. What they don't always account for is that those people may have also been guessing, inferring, filling in gaps too, and they just happen to guess right. So what does this mean practically? For leaders and managers, the most important communication habit you can build is to say what you actually mean, not a softer phrase that you think implies what you mean. It can feel odd when you have softened messages for so long, but be bold and direct and just say what you mean. If you want someone to stop responding to a difficult colleague's emails in real time, say that. If you want someone to deprioritize a relationship, say that. If you want someone to set a boundary, describe what that boundary looks like in practice. And if you want to continue for them to push through a toxic engagement, because that's what it is, and try not to let that engagement upset them, which is what "don't let him bother you" actually means, you need to be bold enough to say it. Say, "I don't know how to fix this problem, and you have to take care of this client and figure out a way to press through, and I'm sorry it sucks." Specificity is not condescending, it's ownership. Specificity is respect for the other person. It says, I want to make sure we're starting from the same place, that we are on the same page. For neurodivergent people who have spent years being told their communication style is the problem, I want to offer a different frame. Directness is not a deficit. Literalness is not a failure. In many contexts, it's a gift. It brings clarity. The work is not for someone to become more ambiguous. The work is to find environments where precision is valued and to advocate clearly, directly, in the way you naturally communicate for the clarity you need. And for everyone, because this is a Think Differently episode, and I mean that for all of us, I want to leave you with a thought worth asking the next time you give someone direction or feedback or advice. If they took what you said literally, word for word, and acted on it, would that be okay? And if the answer is no, then you're not really being clear. Until next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of Think Differently. I hope you found our discussion today insightful and thought-provoking. I want to thank AudioWorks Studios for their exceptional production and recording support. Without their expertise and dedication, this podcast would not be possible. If you enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to share it with others. Your support helps us to reach new audiences and promote neurodiversity in our world. Also, be sure to subscribe to this podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite platform so that you can stay up to date on the latest episodes. We look forward to seeing you again soon on Think Differently.